Guys, this video is sponsored by Bardia Helmy at Premier Fight Picks. Bardia is a top sports bettor and analyst with a 70% winning record tracked over 4 years. Guys, Bardia has been on fire lately, profiting on 5 out of the last 6 events. Just this past weekend, he predicted Islam Makhachev to submit Charles Oliveira, and also gave out a prop bet of under 3.5 rounds. With Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva and Arnold Allen versus Callan Cater coming up, in addition to 3 UFC events next month, this is the perfect time to sign up. Bardia is offering weekly, monthly, and yearly subscriptions to get you in on the best MMA picks, bets, and analysis. There are currently 3 bets posted for this weekend's UFC Fight Night: Cater versus Allen, and the highly anticipated UFC middleweight title fight, Adesanya versus Pereira. A subscription will get you instant access to all of this content and more, so don't miss out. Go subscribe at PremierFightPicks.com. And don't forget to follow Bardia on Instagram at Premier Fight Picks for free fight picks and analysis. Arizona State Athletic Commission is to meet. Now, guys, when I make these pieces, I turn these around quick, but there is an editing process. There's a sound. I've got to upload it through something the kids call YouTube, and it can take about 45 minutes at times. And I fear that by the time you see this, we're already going to have resolution. But the Arizona State Athletic Commission is set for an emergency meeting. And so you understand how commissions work. This isn't like an office that you show up from 9 to 5 and you get holidays and weekends off. It's not like that. Commissions are a special thing. All of the people involved with commissions have other jobs. Somewhere they got together for a commission. So there's very specific dates. There's usually about 6 per year. So when they call an emergency meeting, you're calling everybody that has something else to do in life, and they all must unite. It's very relevant because they're doing that. They've called one of these emergency sessions to look at Anderson Silva, the comments that he made that he was knocked out in training camp, and his eligibility to be licensed to take on Jake Paul. It's a massive deal. And if you're a promoter, I mean, you're sitting there in absolute panic mode right now. The only upside that you get as a promoter is perhaps that this story then creates a story. And frankly, I'm doing that to serve the promoter because I feel terrible for him. We have no data on Anderson's comments. First off, Anderson was not knocked out in training. Let's just start with that. Anderson's comments were not only that he was knocked out twice on his last day of sparring. Now, I want to stop you right there because we don't know if that was a year ago. I mean, it's very relevant. It's extremely relevant how long ago that was. For somebody of Anderson's ability to even be knocked down, let alone knocked out, would be very rare. It could certainly happen. He's a human being. For him to then get up in a room full of professionals and with a coach to that caliber who sends him back in, that is very unlikely. But Anderson says that it happened. Not only knocked out twice in the same session. I'm only giving you guys the backstory. Anderson Silva meant to just compliment his training. He was just trying to elevate his training partners. He was trying to talk about how hard they pushed him and what great skills they have. How serious he took the approach leading to Jake Paul. That's all he meant to do. But the commission's going to meet because other words were said. Now, all that the commission needs is for Anderson to correct those statements on the record. Very important. If you sanction an event, to tie that word in that meaning, that definition back to its initial roots, you're talking about you're going to insure an event. So you want to make sure that you're not sending damaged goods into the ring. This is very common. I signed with Brigham Young University. It's where I went to college. I forget that. I have blocked that from my memory, but I signed with BYU. And before school had even started, every athlete needed to report. And we go through this full day. I mean, it was a massive headache because every athlete, every sport reported all at the same time. And we had about 9 different checks and balances. They would ask you everything under the sun about how you feel, and then once you told them the answers, they would then make you prove it. Just by example, how are your knees? My knees are good. Okay, great. Squat down and jump up into the air at full force. But miss, I just told you my knees were good. If you weren't going to believe me, why did you ask the question? But it was a full day of this. And I was highly irritated by it. And the woman finally told me, she said, Chael, we're paying you to come here. You were taking up a spot in a room. We are responsible for what happens with you, and we want to know that we're not paying money on athletes who are already damaged. And that was very powerful speak, but I appreciate it because she was telling the truth. I understood that concept. Anderson is allowed to have been knocked out in training, just so you understand. Anderson is allowed to be knocked out twice in training, just so you understand. But when? How long ago was Anderson separated from consciousness to the time that we send Anderson in the ring now? If I was to go out and have a fight, I knocked the guy out one punch, right? I beat Masvidal's record over Askren in 5 seconds. I knocked this guy out in 3 seconds. I'm suspended automatically. Did you know that? I will have an automatic 30-day suspension based on jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions, 7 days. But I will automatically be suspended. You look at that and go, why? Suspended for what? You walked out, you threw a punch. This guy went down. Why would you possibly suspend it? It's just built in. Now, I could get around that 30 days. If I went and saw a doctor who was willing to sign off, which means he's now sanctioning it, which means he's now insuring it, the commission could allow me to fight. I have one begrudgment within this sport. This is the sport I love, the sport of MMA. But I do have one thing that I begrudge, which is that we only compete 3 times a year. That irritates me to a very high degree. I step in the sport, I see 20 different guys whose asses I want to kick. And if everything goes my way and I happen to get all 20 of those guys and those guys are still left standing, they're still doing it, it's going to take me 7 years. In the world of wrestling, I need one good weekend. One solid weekend, and I will eliminate that guy or somebody who eliminated that guy, and I can prove my point. That's personal. That's personal to me. Other guys, you can't even get them off the couch for those 3 times a year. The 3 times that you're allotted, a lot of guys don't do it, particularly the guy with a little bit of money in his pocket, a guy who's a prize fighter and doesn't count on the prize. Hard to get him out there. So I'm just sharing with you what's going on. This is developing right now as we speak. You quite literally are going to have resolution before I get this to the airwaves, or you're going to have resolution soon thereafter. But the commission has to get together. They have to show that they care. They have to show that they're listening. They will always take you at your word. One great thing about commissions, really, they do a very good job of taking the athlete at his word, because some of the words by athletes are very hard to believe at times. They really are. But somebody that's willing to get half naked and step in a cage with a trained killer on Saturday night for the whole world to watch, right? He kind of leads a different life. He's going to have all sorts of stories and tales that you're not going to be able to relate to. So the commission will take him at his word, but now we got to get that word on the record. And this particularly weighs in on the heels of TJ Dillashaw revealing to the world that he had a dislocated shoulder prior to entering a contest. I do not give TJ a hard time for that. I saw a lot of people that did. I thought, wow, what a tough guy. That'd be very hard. I've never had a shoulder going in and out. But if I did have it going in and out and I've got to go into combat and I know it's got a very good likelihood of going out and I'm tough enough to go and do it, I would want you guys to look at me and think, wow, what a tough guy. Which is how I look at TJ. I don't give him a hard time. I'm just sharing with you. Had we not had the Dillashaw episode, Anderson's comments very likely just go through the media. Less is more and off we go. The reason the commission is going to get together and look at it is directly because of the comments by TJ and how that was received by our community. Now, my final analysis. Yes, these guys are going to fight. There's going to be no problem, and fighters are going to learn a lesson from both TJ and Anderson. Which is your words matter. Telling the truth to a government agency matters. Thinking you're going to have fun or thinking you're going to get off the hook by telling the world I shouldn't have been out there isn't how we're going to do this anymore. Fine. Seems like a pretty simple lesson. I can live with that, can't you guys? Okay. What does happen when they get in the ring? Because even though the commission is calling an emergency meeting, which could put the brakes on the event, they still held their open workouts. And one thing that I noticed with Anderson was how quick he is and how well he moves. And that's what I'm looking for. That's what Teddy Atlas is looking for. That's what Matt Kellerman is looking for. We want to see when we have an older fighter, can he still move? It was something that was very alarming when we saw training footage of Evander Holyfield. Evander before Vitor, it was not just a matter that he wasn't moving very well. His movements also weren't in sync. If I'm going to dip this way, I'm throwing with the opposite hand. If I'm going to roll back, I'm going to protect with the same side hand. These are very important. So when Evander goes to dip and then he rolls and then the hand moves, you go, oh my goodness. Right? The brainstem, they're not firing together. The brainceptors told him to dip and throw, but he dipped, returned, then he threw. This is a problem. That's what the experts, there's not a lot of experts out there. There's not a lot of people that know about fighting. That includes the commission. There is not a commission member anywhere in the United States of America that's ever fought. Are you aware of that? Does that surprise you? There's not a sitting commissioner. We have a couple of executive directors. We don't have any sitting commissioners. I don't begrudge them for that. I add to the value of the statement when I tell you we're being judged as fighters by people that don't know about fighting. Like, I'm not just saying that to put somebody down. I'm making a very literal statement for you. Which is why the tape of Evander rolling, dipping, and then having his mental receptors throw the hand went unnoticed. So I'm watching Anderson Silva in this workout. Oh my goodness, he's flowing. I mean, do you guys think that reasonably anybody has watched more Anderson Silva than me? That person could be out there, but would you agree, just on the little information that you have, that Chael probably studied Anderson inside out, upside down, and backwards? You probably would. And you'd be right to do that. And I'm telling you, he moves the same. Puts that smile on his face. See, Anderson smiling's a bad thing. He has a very childlike playfulness to this sport. Sometimes he'll even talk about the sport. He won't call it a fight. He says he's going to play. But there's a realness to a guy that does enjoy it. And if you think that you're talking about an elder fighter, now you're talking about a slow guy whose receptors aren't throwing, whose reactions aren't coming. That's not what I saw within the open workout. It's very different and very easy to look good on pads. I understand that. But that really does translate quite well when a guy has 25 years of experience. I could take somebody from the gym that would look like a frightened child if they're in front of an opponent, but I take the opponent away, oh my goodness, they're looking fantastic. That aptitude does not work in reverse when the person is a former competitor, and in this case, world champion. My final analysis, Anderson looked very good. My final analysis, Jake Paul at 24 years young, perfectly undefeated, all the courage and all the hard work in the world. I think that boxing's a real sport. I'm one of the few. Not very many people believe that it is. And Conor McGregor, with no experience, going a half an hour with the greatest boxer to have ever done it, helped to damage the idea that boxing, in fact, is a real sport. I still believe it is. I believe Jake Paul is going to have to knock Anderson Silva out. I do not believe there's very many men that could knock Anderson Silva down with a glove, with a great big pillow, 16 ounce, 14 ounce. With a big pillow on your hand, I don't think there's very many men that could knock Anderson down, let alone keep him there for 10 seconds. I'm taking the Spider.